wanted to let you all know. So no name calling, please. And we'll wait a couple more minutes just to get everybody on.
Okay.
442-5700. My name is Teresa.
I know they've been extremely thank you.
Hey, Christine.
Hi, Bert. Sorry, I was just getting off.
So we're asking everybody to put their intros into the chat.
I know we had several email exchanges, and I just want to make sure, you know, it's maybe bullet pointed 3 or 4 questions, whatever it is that you want answered. And I'll try to get them to answer.
Bert, what do you want us to put in the chat?
Just your name and where you're from.
Oh, okay.
So we can kind of fly through the intro. Hey, Mark.
How's it going, Bert?
Good. Let's see, who's BV? BV, where is it? Something on 46628. Okay, I got it. So please, put your contact info into the chat, and then we'll get started shortly.
Who's Bijan Berlin?
Okay, you're with Senator Schatz's office, right? Okay, great. All right. Okay, so we're at 9:02, and we shall go ahead and get started as people join us. I am recording the session. I reminded myself several times so that I wouldn't forget. And per Senate President's recommendation, we want to speed up the introduction. So please put your contact info into the chat. And I think most of the people sort of recognize the names that are already on the call, but I might take liberty to call out some of the new ones just to kind of do a quick intro for the new attendees. Okay, so this is the weekly Broadband Hui call, and we started this 10 weeks ago, and we did this basically to try to bring the community together, primary community stakeholders, both in the public sector as well as the private sector, and nonprofits, to kind of look at what can we do to help get connectivity and try to close the gaps on people that perhaps aren't connected to the internet, especially when everybody's looking at doing distance learning, telework, telemedicine from home. So a large portion of our efforts are some of the near-term solutions that we could find to get people connected. And so, you know, I convened the group, and the group has been great. I mean, it's grown over the weeks, and we've got some great grassroots efforts going on, and we'll go over some of those. But I did want to kind of do some quick introductions, try to keep it short. Again, my name is Bert Lum. I'm with the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. I'm the strategy officer for broadband, and I have a couple of co-conspirators along with me. And Jeannie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Jeannie Skog. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Alliance of Hawaii, which is comprised of all the economic development boards and the Hawaii Business Roundtable, along with others. And broadband expansion is one of our priorities right now.
Thanks, Jeannie. And another co-conspirator of mine is Christine Sakuda.
Aloha, everyone. Christine Sakuda, the executive director of a nonprofit called Transform Hawaii Government. We advocate for modern technology services within government, so government's transparent and efficient and accountable. One of the things we're interested in as well is digital equity. So there's a lot of discussion in the community about access to broadband and computers. So welcome and thanks for joining.
Thanks, Christine. Now, what I'll do is, since a lot of you are returnees, and I am happy to see so many familiar faces, I do want to give a chance to some of the new folks that I know are on the line that are just joining us. So, Liza from Instant Teams.
Hi, I'm Liza Rodewald. I'm the CEO and founder of Instant Teams, and we enable companies to build and manage remote teams from our software and from our talent pools of military spouses and veterans and other individuals and underrepresented people groups in order to build strong customer support, call center support, customer success, admin, and marketing teams for companies that need like fractional use or on-demand teams as well.
Thanks, Liza. And of course, you know, a topic that's of great interest to us is the idea of telework. And we started to kind of bounce around the idea last week about how perhaps a telework force could be cultivated here at Hawaii to maybe even look at getting some of the unemployed workforce to get involved with you know, various types of activities like call center or customer support. So we'll have that conversation a little later on. I have let's see, what is it? Is it Vivian?
Yeah,
Bijan.
Or Bijan, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Bijan Gerlin. I work on Senator Schatz's education policy team. We wanted to start getting looped into these calls just to see how the intersection of education and broadband connect. As we all know, there are some serious issues with how kids are getting schooled, and we want to make sure we're doing what we can.
Thanks, Bijan. I know that Christy's been a regular attendee, and I'm happy to see more participation from Senator Schatz's office. Nate, not Nate from Anthology. We have another Nate. Yotoku. I think you're still on mute. Nate, did you? We didn't get to hear your intro.
He's checked in on the chat.
Okay.
Maybe you can remind folks to check in on chat again, because I see there's quite a few people that aren't on it yet, and that's going to be our way of tracking.
Jeannie, I think you just did a great job of doing that.
Oh, okay.
Nini Yao from Hawaiian Homelands.
How are you? I'm
in your car.
I am. I'm teleworking from home today, so the kids are making noise.
Okay.
So I'm in the car.
Sounds good. Let's see. Any other new members that I might have missed? Oh,
Hi,
Francis.
can you guys hear me now?
Francis.
This is Nate.
Oh, Nate. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. I fixed my sound. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Too many Zoom meetings this morning. my name's Nate Giltoku with Junior Team in Hawaii, and Nate Cam sits on our board, and he asked me to join in. Or actually, I mentioned that I'd be interested in joining.
Sounds good. Welcome. Francis.
Hi everyone, this is Francis Cho from Hawaiian Telecom, just filling in for Ani Menon today.
Thanks, Francis. All right, okay, so we will go ahead and
hey Bert, Kili Namau is here as well. She's on the Board of Education.
Okay, does she want to do an intro?
Sure. Kili?
Aloha. Aloha, everyone. This is Kili Namau. I'm the Maui representative for the Board of Education. I've heard about your hui, and I'm very interested in checking you folks out. Of course, we're very interested in figuring out how we can support our schools better, especially in the upcoming school year. So I'm hoping to get some insight from all of you experts out there. Mahalo.
Thanks, Keely. All right, okay, so any other new members joining us? I forgot to mention that there are dues, and you can make them, you can write checks to me directly. No, I'm just kidding. So what we will do now is kind of go through some of the subgroups that we have that have sort of organically started over the course of the 10 weeks that we've been convening this group, and I'll just go through real quickly. We have we're working on some broadband policy, and I'm working with Jeannie on the broadband strategic plan. So I don't know, Jeannie, you want to do just a quick update on that?
Yes, I want to emphasize that it's an update. With the funding we had, we were just going to do a quick update. It's not turning out to be such a quick update, but we will be tapping some of you for your specific expertise within the next month or so. So thank you very much. All of these discussions have been extremely helpful.
Yeah, and I do want to add that the update, and as we went into this sort of pandemic mode, what the Broadband Hui has helped to really reveal are some of the big gaps, and we wanted to definitely capture a lot of that into the updated plan, which wasn't really addressed in the first go around, which was back in 2012. So I think there's some very substantive work that's going into this. The other thing that we're working on, and I just want to give Jackie a chance to just kind of update us. We're kind of brainstorming around the idea of like a broadband innovation fund. So Jackie, you want to just give us a quick status of that?
Aloha, Jackie Hoover. I'm with the Economic Development Alliance of Hawaii and Hawaii Island Economic Development Board, working with Jeannie on the strategic planning update. And the other thing that I'm working on is editing Senate Bill 2527, using a template from state of Virginia and other states to modify the Senate bill and make it or align it with what the Broadband Hui is looking to do with the state of Hawaii, and secure some funding and state support for our broadband initiative. And I will be also reaching out to many of you for support with the strategic planning, especially related to health and energy. And we'll have the Senate bill draft issued to Bert, the rewrite issued to Bert later this week. Thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Jackie. I do want to add too that, yes.
Hi, Bert. No, sorry, this is Christine. Can Jackie provide just what is the Senate bill? What's the purpose of the bill? That just a little bit more background on that, especially if it relates to something like universal access to broadband, or I'm not sure, but there seems to be a lot of interest in that area.
Christine, so that's one of the areas that we're rewriting the bill for, is to get universal access there. But primarily it was to align with the broader issue of the Broadband Hui that we have. And I can issue I'll send you a private chat and send you the actual copy of the bill because it is going to be edited quite significantly.
Great, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
For anybody joining us, please put your contact info into the chat, and you know, we can kind of keep track of who's joining us. Yeah, let's see. Oh, I did want to also add that you know, this is not so much policy, but we are actively going after some economic development administration dollars for some broadband infrastructure. So these are federal dollars that we're looking at, and this has been a project that I've been working on for the past 3 years to do infrastructure build for connecting submarine fiber cables on each of the major Hawaiian islands. So we're going to be moving forward with that, and I just got the purchase order issued for a grant writer. So I'm excited about moving that project forward. Okay, so with that, let's see. I will give a quick chance for Millie or David to kind of give us an update on the Wi-Fi on wheels. I hear that's moving along.
Yeah, good morning, Bert. This is Sarah. Millie Antolafin. I teach at Alima Intermediate, and I've met with you guys before. So I'm working with David and Hawaii Kids Can on the Wi-Fi on Wheels initiative that was just really started by educators, honestly, in the last month, and things are moving super fast. We had great, thank you, Bert, for having us on Bite Marks Cafe. It was a fun episode. And also HPR put out another little conversation with us yesterday that was kind of cool. Where we're sitting right now is trying to get in that resource gathering stage to make sure that we're ready for the deployment to happen, to get ready for summer learning. We have some sites on near Kona that are looking really promising, and we're still also focusing on Leeward Coast. We're bringing a lot of community partners together in these conversations to try to talk about how this is most feasible for the communities that we're trying to serve. David, did I leave anything out?
Great job as always, Millie. I think the only other thing that we wanted to maybe mention at this time is that as often as possible, we're trying to align with other service providers in the communities so that it's not just the connectivity, but it comes with other comprehensive supports that we know families really need during these challenging times. And then we're looking forward to trying to coordinate with the DOE and other partners who are also looking at connectivity as a community-wide challenge. And we hope that we're trying, that we're answering the call that Superintendent Kishimoto put forward as connectivity really being a community-wide set of solutions. So yeah, we're excited by what's happened, and we have pledges from 2 sponsors on the funding side to get this up and running in community. So hoping to connect all the dots as soon as possible.
Thanks, David. And both Millie and David, they started this initiative off pretty much as a very grassroots effort, and as the Hui has continued on, I mean, there's been very strong interest from other community members to not only help out with Wi-Fi on wheels, but also perhaps even consider replicating or even jumping on the bandwagon. So I think it's a great example of what a grassroots team could do, and just the demonstration of a pilot can really start to spark the interest in others, perhaps even doing their own. So with that, I do want to give Brooke a chance, because Brooke's learning labs are another interesting sort of take on mobility and internet connectivity. So Brooke, go ahead, and he's the CIO over at the Department of Education. He's been a regular attendee of the Hui, and I know he'd love to talk about the learning lab.
Sure. So there's actually multiple approaches that the department is moving ahead on all at the same time. One is providing network access on a vehicle, similar to what's going on with Wi-Fi on wheels. The actual technical solution is a little bit different because it's engineered to take advantage of the department's existing infrastructure to filter internet safely for the kids as required by federal law, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the solution that's actually being purchased using CARES funding to go into the buses can either be deployed in a mobile solution, solar powered, out in the field, or can be deployed at a school campus and basically extending the Wi-Fi there, so that if we've got a building or maybe a field or something like that, or a parking lot that wasn't previously covered by Wi-Fi, we can quickly extend that so that each school, each community can have an approach using common infrastructure to get to broader access, whether it's families come and park in the parking lot, or the kids come and hang out under the trees in the field at the school, or a vehicle actually goes out to the community. So that's one example of what we're doing. We're also trying to identify community centers where we can extend the school network. That's something that we had actually piloted before all this went down with Ocean View on the Big Island, extending the network for Ka'u High School to one of the community centers where normally kids would be picked up on the school bus. But because we were doing this at the community center, if they missed the bus, they could still virtually show up to school. So we were laying the groundwork to be able to do this and try it out before we thought this was going to be a problem. We're also in the process of lining up a purchase of a large number of individual hotspots for families where, you know, there isn't a cluster of kids together all in the same location where a bus would make sense. The population is more spread out, or maybe they have some either vehicular or personal mobility challenges. So there'll be personal Wi-Fi access being provided as well. That's all in support of the purchase of 10,000 devices to extend the capacity of the schools in terms of devices, targeting the kids and families that don't have access at home. That purchase went in and was announced last week. So we talked about it briefly on this Hui this past week. So those devices are in flight, in transit, lined up to be deployed for summer school, which will start early June. Summer school itself, there's a lot of activities going on there, including some on-campus activities, obviously very limited numbers with a lot of emphasis on sanitation and social distancing for the kids that need services that can really only be provided in person. There's credit extension options. There's various applications that we've been deploying and getting in place for that. All of this work also pushing forward with the engineering to be able to track in real time what is going on with these devices. So those 10,000 devices will have device management software installed on them. So we'll be able to know which ones are being used, which ones aren't being used, which ones are perhaps damaged, which ones are having network connectivity problems, and be able to provide real-time information on what's actually going on there. So that's some of what we're doing just for summer school. Of course, we're starting to lay out the plans and the infrastructure to support the regular school year in the fall. Obviously, we still need to be somewhat flexible in terms of what those plans actually look like in a concrete way. We hope that the kids will be back on campus full time, but of course we can't guarantee that. We need to be ready for an outbreak, whether it's statewide or localized or whatever, or the current guidance from the DOH still requires only small groups, which of course is challenging in a classroom setting. So we may have to have what we've been calling a blended learning approach, where some time is in person, some time is online. So we're starting to lay out all the plans for that, while we've of course been simultaneously finishing off the school year, because there's a day and a half left of the official school year, and get everything started to close the gap for the kids that were off track going into the fourth quarter, and then of course had challenges staying on track because of everything that's gone on. That's a brief nutshell of what's kind of going on there. All of you guys have been great partners and working on the ideas, whether it's people like Hawaii Hope that is giving devices directly to the families, or all the different efforts. Hawaiian Tel has been a partner here, Spectrum has been a partner here, the Wi-Fi companies are partners as well, Bert and Christine, and of course we can't do any of this without the support of the legislature and all the other state offices as well.
Great. Hey, Brooke, so we got a couple of questions that are coming in on the chat, and maybe, we could kind of quickly go through some of those. Dawn from Maui is asking about, how can they request some devices for HANA School?
So HANA is actually in the request, so that should be in flight. The Canoe complex in general was one of the ones that we reached out with very early on, because obviously there's geographic challenges for the Canoe complex, not just HANA. Molokai, there's some very particular situations on Molokai. Lanai seems to have fairly good technology support for some mysterious reason. They do okay. As far as the hotspots, the current estimate is close to 4,000 additional hotspots. That's information that's been gathered from the complex area superintendents who reach out to the schools and say, what's the need for that, based on whether their understanding is that the families have network access at home. Again, that's not data we had historically ever collected. It was not part of the school design requiring network access at home. That's part of that. As for the next question going down, 10,000 devices, that is certainly only a fraction of the number of students that are there. However, what that's doing is closing the gap, because schools have historically bought devices for use by the students out of their weighted student formula funding. So it's really more closing the gap. So we'll certainly so that's certainly part of how we're factoring that in. We're not just buying a device for every student. Obviously, that'd be more like 180,000 devices. There's a lot of devices lying around already. We're focusing on deploying those devices, deploying the network access. It's a huge amount of work. We're actually getting support and partnership from UH, and also looking at some local technology providers to provide some distribution support there in the end. It's kind of working through the map there. As we get that deployment information lined up, we'll certainly be sharing all the details of where that goes, and then that can line up with the data, the maps, the broadband maps that people are working on. I don't have the specific numbers for each school or each district in front of me right now. The last question I see there is on Hawaiian Hope. So that's one of the places where we kind of march. I would characterize it as side by side, because Hawaiian Hope's model is to give it directly to the families as a donation to the family, as opposed to a donation to the school or to the department. And so we're making services available to the students that's still funded through taxpayer money, whether state or federal, or grants from the DOE, or however that is structured. And that's still something that the schools will redeploy and redistribute as needs change. Different model, but part of the puzzle overall for how this all fits together to make sure everybody has access.
For anybody
that are coming up in chat.
Could you mute your phone, mute your audio? I guess if you haven't already done that, and if you're not speaking, appreciate that. Brooke, there's another. Millie asked a question about getting Wi-Fi hotspots, and I think that might be a interesting opportunity for HSTE to perhaps get involved in.
Hey, Brooke, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Is there a
wait, Curtis, you can't just jump before my question. So
yeah, I
hold your horses.
I didn't see the actual question from Millie. So
Just asking Brooke about how to get access for hotspots for summer school.
Yes. Okay. So there it is. It's there's been a lot of questions coming in. So that request should have gone through your principal to the CAS, and the CAS would have communicated up to my team. So as we get the approval and the funding lined up for that, we'll be purchasing them and shipping them to the summer schools as quick as can. And whether that's going to be a mobile model providing access to multiple kids at once, or it's going to be an individual hotspot put in the kid's hand to take home, or an expectation that the kids are coming to a specific location, or they're being provided with a device that has cellular capability built in. Of the 10,000 devices as it worked out, in order to keep things simple, because we didn't have a whole lot of lead time between when the funding came in and when we needed to get the devices in place, we said, okay, we'll get either a capable Chromebook with video, because everybody's using video, or we'll get an iPad with cellular. And the division is, if it's for younger kids, we recommend the iPad. If it's for older kids, we recommend the Chromebook. And so there's 2,500 iPads coming in for targeting K-2 kids, and 7,500 Chromebooks to close the gap for the older students. The Chromebooks don't have cellular, so that's where there will need to be that network support. The iPads do, and part of what we're procuring right now is 3 months of cellular service to cover those. The hotspots have to come with a year of cellular service, but we'll probably be dealing with various kinds of adaptations to this situation even into the fall. As we said before, we can't know. So,
hey Bert,
questions.
Can you hear me, Bert?
Yeah, Mel. Before I go to you, Curtis, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to kick you in the shins earlier. Hey, Brooke, is there any type of almost something like a VPN app or anything where it could be installed into people's devices and then the school handles the filtering of it? This way they could, like if they have an existing cell phone or something like that, where they could, this way, instead of having to necessarily, get thousands of more devices, we use the existing infrastructure.
So that can be done with the same device management software that I was referring to. So that's more of a bring your own device model that certainly has communities where that would work well. There are communities where that wouldn't work so well. I think one of the examples that people have brought up on this call and other discussions is there are families that have lots of kids and only one computer, and they can't all use it at the same time. There are families that have a phone, which is not the most productive way to be doing a whole bunch of schoolwork on a little teeny screen like this. There are families that can't get network access even though it's free, because there still is the expectation that once the free offer expires, they will be paying. So part of signing up for the service is a credit check. And not every family can pass that credit check for a sustained service. So the product that we're looking at can be used in a BYOD sort of situation. Because we're focusing on equity and closing the gap, BYOD is not at the very tip top of the list for what we would be doing there. But it's certainly something that we're aware of. There certainly are schools where the schools are like, it doesn't make any sense for us to buy computers for our kids because mommy and daddy will buy the much better computers than we would ever be able to get. Other questions?
Mel, did you have a question?
Yeah, there were a lot of questions for Brooke on the chat. I was wondering if we could go one by one and get those answered.
So I tried to kind of go through that top to
Yeah, I know
bottom.
it's pretty tough. Yeah, because they were coming in as you were speaking, Brooke. So I know it started with Senate President has a question about, you know, whether it's the 10,000 devices, of what percentage of the need does that serve? And then there were many other questions, more specific. And then I had one with regards to the allocation of the 34 million by school and whether that's available so that the schools know how to budget. So maybe if we could go through one by one, Bert.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we have a little bit of time left over for others.
Can we start with Senate President's question then?
Sure.
So at 9:23, Senate President asked estimate of how many hotspots need to be purchased. So again, that's just shy of 4,000. That's the asks that came in from the complex areas to close the gap. That is
4,000
again
statewide. 4,000 is all we need.
So that's what the ask is at this time. But again, that's focusing on summer school. That's focusing on closing the gap for kids that were not on track and don't already have network access at home and can't reasonably be expected to get it for themselves. So that is certainly nowhere near being able to say, oh yeah, 4,000 devices comprehensively covers every student in the state. No, we have 180,000 students. That's not what that number is answering. The number is answering, this is what the schools have identified they need right now for summer to provide to kids that don't have any sort of access, can't be expected to come in person because there's still stay-at-home orders. There's still a lot of risk from the virus. So that's just closing that equity gap and just for students that are not on track. The next question was from Sean at the same time, the DOE filtering at the device. You need to filter the Wi-Fi internet for everyone. So if you're on a DOE provided Wi-Fi network, we are filtering if you're signed up on the segment that's targeted for students. That's part of federal regulations as part of COPA that we have to block the usual suspects, porn, inappropriate content, things like that. And that is in place. And certainly with the solutions that we'll be deploying, that's part of what we will be deploying as well. It will come with that kind of filtering and protection. We're also doing that at the device level. So whether you're just getting on our network, there'll be that filtering. If you've got our device and you're using it at home, on your own network at home, that's part of what will be enabled by that device management, is to be able to turn on content filtering on that device and protect that as well. Hotspots for summer school. So answered that from Millie. That's what all of these numbers are just talking about summer school. We are working on plans for what the full school year will look like, but that's still in progress. Sherry had asked about the percentage of the 10,000 devices will cover for the state. Again, that's the gap that's been identified on a complex by complex, school by school level, just for summer school, just for right now. It came out to around 10,000, but it is nowhere near round numbers when you break it up by complex area. Nanakuli Waianae has a couple thousand devices coming their way. There are other complex areas where they're in really solid shape in terms of device availability and really only needed a small number to plug very specific gaps. interestingly, the canoe complex was in that category. So is there an allocation of the $34 million CARES by schools, so schools know what they have to work with? So I believe that's referring to the $43 million that came directly to the DOE. There is an allocation for that is going out separately to the charter schools. So that's part of that funding that we need to allocate that out there as well. We're not doing a school by school individual allocation. Frankly, with $43 million, it wouldn't end up with very much on a school by school basis. So assessing needs by a complex area and saying, okay, what's the most productive thing we can do across the complex area is what we've been doing for that. Can the DOE hotspot?
So on that note, Brooks, so
sure.
When would the complex area know what the amount of budget they're getting from the 43?
So they're not necessarily getting a direct funding allocation. They're getting funding assigned to a particular project or a particular effort for speed and agility that's typically being managed by a very small number of people at the state level and made available to the complex areas based on their ask. So that's what we're doing with the devices. We're not making the schools or the complex areas fill out all the procurement paperwork to buy whatever devices they need. My team did that. We did one collective purchase order, two, because there's two different vendors, obviously, and said, here's the 15 shipping locations for this one. Here's the 15 shipping locations for that one. And oh, by the way, against a $5 million device purchase, we thought it was going to cost $6 million, but it saved us nearly $750,000 when we bought in bulk that way. So it's not a WSF style, this school gets X many, this complex area gets X many. It's here's what we think makes sense collectively. And this has been a discussion amongst the entire leadership. So all three levels, school, complex area, and state have voice. And then typically the state has been purchasing that directly on behalf of the schools to meet their needs. So Excellus, for instance, which is something being used by several thousand kids to close missing credits primarily towards graduation, 11th and 12th graders. That's something where the state office got that agreement lined up, got that in place and said, here's an offering, all schools can sign up for that.
So for example, Brooke, I'm working with Kauai.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a case for multiple things from devices to access to training. Should we submit that to you folks for funding?
It should have already been submitted. So I know we did get device requests. We did get access requests. The training is something that we're still working on. We're still working on training and support for parents and for families as well. So that's still in progress. There's going to be more forthcoming on that as well.
Yeah, I actually have a pro forma with numbers to make specific dollar requests. Should that come back to you so that we can get this assessed for funding?
So yeah, why don't you send that to me offline and go ahead and CC Bill and Paul, and we'll make sure that we're not cross-talking or trying to do something that's already being handled. Because again, all of this is moving very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, so just want to find out what the process is so that we won't drop the ball on our end, so that we know who it needs to be submitted to, since it's not going to be an allocation.
So the expectation again should have been that the CASs submitted that. So Bill and Paul, in your case for Kauai, should have put that information in place. If there is a miss, then we'll figure that out and we'll get that closed. I know Bill and Paul have been busy, as we all have.
Yeah.
And we'll figure that out.
No, thank you, because they may not have even known, so I gotta let them know that we gotta submit.
Yep. So let's see. Next question going down the list was from Don Lono at 927. Devices being sent to HANA. Again, I don't have the table on school by school. Again, part of that was it was collected on a complex area basis, but Canoe Complex was a little bit different, of course, because it's Canoe. I just don't have the numbers right in front of me. I did talk about coordinating with Hawaiian Hope and how we kind of run in parallel, because they're targeting the families directly and donations to the families, whereas we're working with the schools and what the schools are owning and managing.
Brooke, there was a question right before Dawn's, which is from Christine Sakuda, the one about the mapping.
I thought I had answered that as we get that stuff deployed, yes, we will be making that information available, and that'll line up with the mapping efforts. So sorry if I blew through that a little too quickly. You know, and part of this also is that the needs of the schools change on a moment-by-moment basis, whether they realize, oh, I don't have a need for devices in this situation, or we've decided for that family to be better to have the students physically come in, or whatever. So there's changes up and down on a school-by-school basis as we go through it all, which is part of why that device management software will be so useful to keep track of where everything actually is, and ultimately provide real transparency on the devices, what activities are going on with the students, and whatnot. Coordinating with Hawaiian Hope, then Sean at 929 on social justice. I don't think that's actually a question, just a reference. Ray, comment on Austin DOE, received a donation from Kajit. We've actually been talking to Kajit. They are out of devices and certainly don't have any more donation capacity. I believe they're headquartered in Austin, which might explain why they are supporting the Austin DOE very specifically. There are issues with Kajit's business model in that it is a metered data service. So you pay per byte, as opposed to what we're deploying, which is all you can eat on network capacity. So that's something though that we are looking at. And then I'm seeing if there are other questions further down that I missed. I think it's all links and references at this point. So any other questions, comments on any of that?
I do want to add, Mark Buell sort of privately chatted some information, and Mark, maybe you can just put it out there, and there may be some money from the Internet Society that could support Wi-Fi hotspots.
Yeah, thanks, Bert. Yeah, I think I could try and dig around the Internet Society and see if I could come up with, my thinking is around 15,000 for support for other Wi-Fi hotspots or networks. It couldn't go towards providing devices, but would have to go towards connectivity. The only real challenge is I think I'd have to get that in very much sooner rather than later. We've done it for a few communities around Canada and the US, maybe half a dozen. But if anyone needs some support for Wi-Fi hotspots, whether that's buying a mobile device with some prepaid data that can be provided so people can hotspot off of them, or equipment for a school to broadcast out a Wi-Fi network, absolutely let me know. And let me know as soon as we can. I don't need a lot of information, just sort of an idea of a couple sentences on what you'd be looking at doing and what sort of equipment you would need. I'll put my email in the chat so you can reach out directly.
Is that something that might be better addressed by David and Millie over at HSTE, or because on the DOE level, it's you got some bigger projects going on, and maybe this is a smaller project that could benefit the communities that David and Millie are working on.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Just please reach out sooner rather than later.
Okay. I'll certainly send the reminder to Brooke, Millie, and David.
Thanks, Bert.
Sure thing. Okay, so with that, any other questions for Brooke? We can sort of move on to the next topic. And the topic of HANA has been a really interesting one and has gotten a lot of attention. Ani did report back to me that there is a meeting that is being scheduled with Senator Kalani English to kind of go over some of the maybe challenges along the route. I don't know if Francis, do you wanna say anything at this stage?
I don't have an update for the group. I'm sorry. I know that a meeting is being scheduled, and that she and folks from our team are working with Senator English's office to schedule that meeting.
Okay, and then so Ani said that next week we could probably get a more update on what's happening with the route to HANA. I did invite and reached out to the folks over at Hawaiian Homelands, and I know they are one of the landowners along the way. That's kind of Niniao. I mean, that's kind of why we wanted to have you guys on the call, just to kind of get ready for any possible requests that might help lower the the barrier to getting rights of way across the various landowners along that southern route. So that's kind of the latest on the HANA connectivity issue.
I don't know if is Senator English on the call. I think he has an update. I'm not sure if he's on yet.
I think I saw him on earlier.
I'm here, but I'm in Haiku with very, very limited access. So it goes in and out, even though they show this area as having access. So I can hear you, and sometimes, but this is in Haiku. So Bert, this is part of your job too.
So would you like me to give a brief update, Senator? I can try to do the best I can on information.
I think we can wait till the next meeting because we'll be meeting with them this week, and then hopefully I'll have better connection then.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I take on the challenge, and I'm sure Jeannie will appreciate the better connectivity to Haiku as well. Okay, so with that, I do want to give Kendrick any updates on the broadband data and mapping front.
Thank you, Bert.
Bert, I'm going to have to leave. If I could just give a quick report. Sorry, Kendrick.
Oh, sure, absolutely,
please go ahead.
Senator President. Go ahead.
And especially if Senator English is listening, then he can, certainly add anything. But back to Senate Bill 2527, the more accurate question should have been, what is the title? The title of the bill is Broadband Service Infrastructure. For how a bill becomes a law 101, any content of the bill needs to match the title. So obviously when the session started, none of us anticipated dealing with COVID-19 and all of the effects of shutting down and everything else. So I believe what they're trying to say is Senate Bill 2527 has an appropriate title, but it sounds like they're going to take what was original content in the bill and either completely remove it and add it with language that they think more appropriately addresses the current situation, which is famously known as gut and replace. If you saw it in news reports, this is what gut and replace is, a good title. Things change and you have the ability to adapt. If some of the content works that's in the bill, but you need to add a part 2 that is relative to the title, they refer to as a Frankenstein bill, because you are creating a second part and building a new monster that didn't exist before. And so while they make it seem like such evil, nefarious process, it's a tool when you have unanticipated emergencies. Almost all of the bills in that last session we were in were gut and replace bills because we did not anticipate what's happening. So Now that they're going to get you the suggested content, you need to look at that. And if it does replace the original bill, don't look at Senate Bill 2527 and then get all worked up. You need to look at what they're going to propose, which would be a House draft, as that bill is sitting in the House. So just so everybody would be kind of on the same page and at least understand what may potentially be happening in the legislative process when we come back in June. And we're expecting probably to be back on June 15th.
Senator, this is Jackie. Thank you so much for the comprehensive explanation. I was trying to avoid using gut and replace for the very explanation you gave. Thank you very much.
No, I want everybody to know what it is, because they make it seem like this is a tool to create evil and do harm, and it is incredibly essential in the legislative process to deal with these kind of emergencies. And so, but I want everybody to know what we're doing, and if you get on board on the bill, you need to know that you're on a gut and replace bill. So if you're principled and you need to step off, at least you knew beforehand what was happening.
Right, and let me add that if there's a way that some of the projects, the more grassroots kinds of efforts that are going on, as discussed on the Hui call, could potentially be a recipient of some innovation grant money to address broadband deployment, and how are there flexibilities that could not only do let's say Wi-Fi, could include hardware, computer hardware, could include just some of these innovative ideas that help close the gap, even from a digital equity standpoint. So could that be worked into that current SB 2527? So appreciate Jackie's taking a look at that, and thanks Senate President for the feedback.
Hi everyone, it's Kendrick from Hawaii Data Collaborative. So this week, Arthur Buto them kindly uploaded some broadband maps, and maybe if you have any updates, I'll hand it over to you, Arthur.
I have no updates, sorry.
Okay.
So well, just real quickly, Kendrick, and you can speak to this in a little bit more detail. So, when we started to talk about broadband data, obviously we need to get some data, and we need to get it actually shown on a map so that people can get an idea of what this might look like. And we were able to secure some data from Hawaiian Telcom. So if you go to the broadband.hawaii.gov website, and that's the one that I started as a result of this Hui call. You can go to the Broadband Hui menu selection on the top menu bar, and it'll put you into the Broadband Hui page. And as projects start to take shape and evolve and have some progress, I try to post those projects into the Broadband Hui site. And if you go down and look at what's going on with broadband mapping, Arthur did give me a GIS map of what he currently has with Wi-Fi hotspots. So you can sort of check that out and see. It's kind of a layered map, and I know Arthur, it's a work in progress. So but please, for members on this call, please check back, and that's kind of where we'll give you sort of the latest work in progress for some of these topics. Kendrick, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just just a quick disclaimer. It is a work in progress. There's a lot of data layers there, and so one of the things I need to do is clean it up so that it's a little more usable, user-friendly, and can give you information, maybe provide information that you're looking for. Right now, it's just a whole bunch of data layers laid on top of each other, so can be a little confusing and intimidating.
But excellent work so far, and some basic observations. There's a layer for socioeconomic vulnerability, kind of by the bottom. So the more red, the more socioeconomically vulnerable. So these are the communities that we probably should be prioritizing broadband deployment. And you can see that they overlap with the availability of wireless and wired broadband. But as Senator English remarked earlier, a lot of our places do have some kind of wireless or wired internet connection, but the quality and reliability has yet to be mapped. So I think we'll spend some time trying to track down that data and hopefully give Arthur's team more information.
Again, I want to thank Kendrick and Arthur. It's it's a little, sometimes it's like Arthur said, it's a work in progress, and for them to actually put some of the work up for people to take a look at. I mean, it does open it up for some criticism, but I do want to share the appreciation for the work that Kendrick and Arthur are doing, just to keep the momentum and the ball rolling in this area, which has historically been difficult to try to get whatever data that could be shared on a public map. So again, I want to thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, mostly Arthur and team, but I'm available as a resource for anybody who wants to walk through what we're seeing on the GIS map. I know not everyone has a GIS background, so any way I can help, please reach out to me separately.
Sounds good. And as far as contact information, I did share the list of all the contacts that are participating on the call. So, you are able to get that through the Google sheet that I shared. And if for whatever reason you want to reach out and didn't get to look at the Google sheet, just feel free to email me, and then I'll make sure that I connect folks. Curtis, you get your warehouse space yet?
No, not yet. We're still waiting on a confirmed response. So the powers that be are discussing it, and but yeah, no confirmed response yet. So
okay. The next topic, telehealth, I did have a conversation, and we'll probably have a little bit more information next week, but I did have a chance to talk to Christina Higa and Sylvia Mann about the potential for telehealth, a mobile telehealth service, much like Wi-Fi on wheels, but actually getting telehealth distributed to some of the communities that don't have access. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's a great testament to the work that David and Millie are doing, because it's an example of what can be done. And as others see what they are doing and look at perhaps extending that kind of application, whether it's telehealth to remote communities, I just like to applaud the effort to get some of these projects going. So I know Christina had to run, and Sylvia will join us next week. So we'll kind of talk a little bit more about how that might sort of take shape and proceed forward. So that was kind of an exciting telehealth update that I wanted to share with you. I do want to kind of give a chance now to talk a little bit about the opportunity to look at creating a telework segment that might even serve as a way of getting some of the unemployed workers to actually do more remote work through some of the demand that might get created, as we start to look at partnerships within our community. So I want to, Kiala, I know I'm going to put you on the spot here, but kind of let's have a little discussion about how might this actually take place, and what kinds of resources, from the chamber. I also have Liza on the call, so maybe there's a way that we could find the right elements that could help foster this environment for development of skill as well as a demand for a telework type of environment.
Yeah, so thanks, Bert. So Bert and I have just been having kind of talk story sessions. Once this Hui, for instance, develops a strong connectivity network, how can we leverage it to really grow Hawaii's economy and help get people back to work? And so when we think about sectors where local companies are, for instance, hiring mainline companies, or in some cases even international companies, to do work that our local workforce can actually do, we think about call centers, and leveraging telework. And we want to think about the implications of AI. We know that AI will, in time, have some disruption on the market, but there will always be a need for human, maybe level 2, level 3 participation in a call center or chat support environment. And so, thinking about who are the businesses locally who are already doing this to some degree with good success. I think of, for instance, HMSA, who employs people from their homes to provide customer support. And of course, it's a healthcare environment, so there are HIPAA implications, but I'm sure there are learnings that we can tap into from companies like HMSA. And then also, who are the companies that are actually outsourcing their customer support to the mainland, who might actually be willing to have a test case for local customer support, and what training would be needed to be able to get some of our hospitality workforce, for instance, cross-trained to be able to move over into a telework call center environment. So that's kind of the context and the background for where Bert and I have our heads. I think first steps are just having some talk story sessions, as I mentioned, around people who are already doing it locally. So would love to know from this group, in addition to HMSA, are there other companies that you would recommend, small, medium, or large, that we pull together who are case studies for successful local call centers? And then at the same time, are there other companies who are just interested in the same concept that we can pull together? So would like to know from this group who those might be. And then, also we would need to do a competitive analysis, a needs analysis. What really is the opportunity, and what kind of training would be needed for our local workforce? So that's the big picture of where Bert and I have our heads. Would like to engage some folks in the discussion. Anything else, Bert?
I'm going to give Liza a chance to chat, to chime in here. Her company, Instant Teams, sort of was built around the idea of remote work and telework. So Instant Teams came out of the Blue Startups cohort just recently.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that you were saying, what we're seeing as Instant Teams. So we enable companies to be able to build those virtual teams of call centers, customer support, even that tier 2, tier 3, like what you're talking about, the higher levels where people are wanting people that are more engaged on the customer support side versus just the, frequently asked question type call script jobs and things. And with what we're seeing at Instant Teams and what I think could be really applicable here is a lot of companies were offshoring some of that to like India and some of these other countries. And now, so those call centers completely went offline whenever COVID hit because their workers weren't able to go home and work immediately because they weren't set up. So I think, this group of what we've been talking about, getting the connectivity distributed so that everyone has access to high quality broadband was the exact problem that they were having in India and why they couldn't support. So those companies started coming to Instant Teams and we started having conversations with them. Okay, we're moving our operations now from outsourcing this to India. What other options are there? So I think there's a good opportunity there for Hawaii to really consider that becoming a hub and an industry here, because now companies are changing how they're doing that. They want to bring it back to the United States and to do more onshoring of those types of environments. So that's one area that we've seen change and being transformed right now as companies are thinking risk mitigation and how to do that. So if there are even some local companies here that want to do it, we could definitely help in that process. So we could help, work with you about setting up the infrastructure, but we could also share best practices on how we've set up the centers, how our software helps facilitate management of remote workers. So even though they're here on the islands, they'll be working from maybe their homes or maybe, you know, different areas, maybe not all centralized in one building, to help that risk mitigation factor. But be happy to explore and just share, you know, what we've seen building these call centers and support operations. We call them like customer success. That's the big trend in that area right now, is customer success, which is a more proactive customer-centric approach versus support, which is all reactive. So that's a good opportunity to have more trained, more skilled individuals that need to be integrated into a company's culture. To be able to create teams, remote teams of that, is a big need that we're seeing right now with companies all across the world, and, you know, here in the United States as well.
Hey, Bert.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great. And Liza, I mean, I think, you know, you've started a company here in Hawaii, looking at the demand that is primarily, I guess, generated from the mainland. And so, you know, are there opportunities for us to help create the right kind of pipeline that would help you know, local workers to perhaps participate in this? And then, you know, with Keala and the chamber, I mean, can we increase that demand for that kind of work that we're talking about? I also invited Allison Tasaka, which I think she might have come in earlier, but might have had to drop off. But she's with the DLIR and the Workforce Development Council. And so she's, you know, quite interested in this effort as well. So, you know, what we intend to do is kind of keep this conversation going and, you know, see if there's ways that we could, you know, start to get some traction around an actual, you know, development of a program around helping to get some of the unemployed workers into this particular area. Jeannie, do you have something to say?
Oh, yeah, I just was going to mention there is a company on Maui. It's been around for a long time, and maybe you're familiar with it. It's called TC Kokua. I'll put it into the chat. And the founder is Max Sai. And he's been doing a call center in Maui for a while for a variety of businesses, as I understand. But one of the things that I understood was a hurdle is the pay. In terms of companies doing large call centers here versus, let's say, in the Philippines. So I really like where this is going, but I did recall that was one of the challenges.
So it certainly is. I'm certainly willing to share more data and walk through what the Department of Education's help desk looks like. We have live data on that, incidents every day. It's a dashboard I can pull up at any time, and we can kind of walk through that. It's not scaled to be able to support every parent, every family on the island, and it would require significantly more capacity to do that, but that's something that we're looking at in terms of partnerships with how to do that. I can also share from personal experience at companies I've worked at before. You're exactly on point that where you choose to site your help desk has a material impact on the cost. Depending on the company you're trying to support, there may actually be an advantage to citing a help desk in the US, even though that's more expensive than the Philippines or India or whatnot, because there are companies, and I see Liza nodding along, I'm sure she knows this, that place a premium on being able to answer the phone with somebody that is a native speaker of English, or a native speaker of whatever language you are actually supporting. I worked for a global company before, and we chose locations to be able to have the customer experience and quality of experience of being able to say, if you're in France, you pick up the phone and you get answered by somebody that is a native French speaker, and Parisian French, not Canadian French, it makes a lot of difference. If you're in Japan, you pick up the phone, you expect to answer somebody that is a native speaker of Japanese. And frankly, there are people in the US that feel much better talking to somebody with a US English accent, as opposed to somebody that clearly sounds like it's coming from India. Yes, there are a lot of stereotypes and stuff built into that, but that's the reality of providing the experience and getting the customers to feel happy when they answer the phone. I think there is actually a huge opportunity for the economy of the state to be able to make that offer. If there are businesses on the mainland that want to provide services to consumers where they're more likely to call in the evening, the time shift actually works well for us here. We can have people serving the help desk in normal business hours, but serving evening hours on the mainland. That's something that could work out very, very well. But again, happy to share either prior experiences building being part of building a global help desk, as well as what the department is doing today with our existing help desk that services the staff of the department. It's only during school business hours, so it's 7:45 to 4:30, 5 days a week. But that's the funding level that we've been appropriated, and it works really well within those hours. We get a lot done even during bursty times like the start of the school year.
Can I put in my 2 cents, Bert?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, I used to work for AOL, which pioneered call centers. But I want to give an example of a very local Akamai company, Kamaina and Akamai company, Outrigger. They've been in Utah for 20 years. And why Utah for reservations? Well, it's low cost, non-union, strong broadband, and they have many top speakers of Japanese, Chinese, any strategic language because they're LDS missionaries. They worked abroad. It's very hard. I speak Japanese. It's very hard to find very good top Japanese or Chinese speakers, although we look like Asia in Hawaii, but they're there in Utah. And so the reservation center was built over there, and for all those reasons. So again, we have to address those reasons, and of course English. And in Manila, you can get English speakers who can work at $15,000 a year at a call center. So all those issues come up for companies, and I think those are things we have to address.
Well, those are good points,
that's part of it. Part of it as well. Specific locations have lower costs. That's part of what needs to be figured out as well. There also needs to be a career path for those call center technicians. That's actually one of the challenges that I'm facing internally to the department. A lot of those people are a category of employee called a UST that doesn't require a college degree. It's an entry-level position, but a lot of the higher level technology positions do require a college degree. And so people end up having problems qualifying for those government positions at a more senior level if they got to start there. It's something that we're looking at and working at. But there's all those factors. Utah is very good. There's a lot of data centers there. That's part of why they have broadband. North Carolina has a big tech infrastructure and a comparatively low cost of living. That's part of what goes into these kinds of discussions. I think it is something that can be addressed. It's not an easy button kind of solution, but there's definitely, I think, some potential there.
No, that's great feedback. So again, Keala, I guess we got a lot of work to do. We want to explore this, this route, and I think to Jeannie's point, I mean, back in the day, when they talked about call centers, they were talking about actually building some brick and mortar. But now in our 21st century reality, it's more about how do we leverage everybody's connectivity and ability to now work at home. So. Keala, any comments on how we want to proceed?
No, I think pay and career pathway is an important consideration, and there are some kind of intrinsic reasons why perhaps this hasn't been fully examined for our market. I think we can continue to do the evaluation. Things are a little different now, and so I think even Liza, to have a follow-up conversation with you to understand some of the learnings that you've seen would be a good place to start. And then we'll do some data analysis and really see if it bears a further discussion or if it's not the time or the place. But good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input.
Liza, anything?
Yeah, I'd love to have a follow-up call. And I think just as a frame to think about it is, you know, maybe not thinking in terms of standing up a call center like a big building here in Hawaii, but being able to plug the Hawaiian people into pipelines that are servicing companies as they distribute out. Because even those companies in Utah are now thinking about, I don't want all my workers in this one building doing this support. How do I distribute this out for risk mitigation? And so how do we plug the Hawaiian people into those teams that are already existing versus having to build your own structure here to support? So just thinking about it in those terms, I think will help solve some of those problems and the upward mobility issues too. So at Instant Teams, we have tracks for them to go into management, to go into tier 2, tier 3 type support positions. So having those kinds of structures in place, I think, is important too. So great point.
Well, thanks, and we'll continue to have that conversation and report back on the sort of like the telehealth or telework subgroup. We do have maybe 10 minutes left, and I do want to give a chance for maybe some open discussion, maybe some ideas on how you feel perhaps the Hui has been able to move on some topics, but are there other topics that we could perhaps get behind and start to apply some not only momentum around, but some expertise in helping to drive. Della, are you still on? Maybe, how can the Hui really kind of help inform the legislature on what could get done, especially in this area of broadband connectivity? Maybe she's on just monitoring us. So with that, I mean, Jeannie, you got any thoughts on what perhaps next steps might be for the Hui? We continue to, look at the subgroups and keep momentum around those activities. And as we start to get into this kind of the reopening or the economic, not only reopening, but how do we ensure the new normal is able to satisfy everybody in Hawaii? How can the Hui help to make that a reality?
Yeah, I think that throwing it out to the rest of the Hui members would be good. I mean, we are a lot of the value that this Hui has done is the process. We've been very organic about it and very flexible, and I think that's one of the strengths of the Hui. So I think it's really important that everyone who participates continues to feed back to us also on how to make the Hui process continue to be valuable to you. So it's not just about what is created, but how we go about it. The sense of being inclusive and, touching and hearing from a variety of sectors and organizations has been really invaluable in this process. So, it would be good to hear from all of you of, are there other ways for the Hui to continue to be important to you and valuable to you in what you're specifically doing?
Christine?
I mean, I echo Jeannie's comments. I think the Hui represents a lot of different interests and initiatives that wrap around broadband. And so the question is, how do we kind of keep the momentum going? And I do happen to be an advocate of the strategic plan because I do think it provides a kind of grounding for everyone to point to and to look at and to react to. And so I did remember hearing from Senator Kochi that the ledge is going back in session in June. That's kind of to wrap up this phase of the legislature. And then their eyes get turned towards 2021. So what are the opportunities for us to provide a clear message around what we think collectively are important points around broadband? And how do we do that? Some of the things that have popped up are around universal access to broadband. Someone had mentioned in the comments that there's public funding and public management of a large broadband network so that everybody has access to reliable broadband, and hopefully these discussions will allow to an opportunity to foster that moving forward. So the how, I think, is important, Jeannie, and I think we're open to feedback from everyone as we think about how do we continue the process moving forward.
No, that's great, and I really want to thank everybody for being a part of the Hui and all the discussions that we've had around the subgroups. And I think don't feel like if the subgroup wasn't on the list. One of my favorites is the community network, but we don't have anything to report out. So don't feel like just because it sort of disappeared from the agenda that it's no longer a topic. All of these are major topics that we want to continue to help foster and move forward. What we are also trying to do is transition to some of the more midterm types of objectives that we want to see happen. And Ken Hughes brings up a good point, and something that I've been working on with respect to fiber connectivity, submarine fiber cable, infrastructure that accesses all the major islands. And the idea is, back when Kauai lost connection because of old submarine fiber cables that connect Kauai, are there ways that the government can help to ensure that connectivity is built in such a way that it's resilient and robust to prevent that kind of outage to occur? And that's why I did mention earlier at the top of the hour that we are working on getting some federal money through the EDA to actually get that process going to do some cable landing infrastructure on the neighbor islands. So again, as the Hui continues, and I fully intend to continue having these Wednesday meetings. We will continue to talk about some of the short term, but we may start to incorporate some of the more midterm types of objectives that we'd like to see happen to ensure Hawaii's connectivity to the internet, not only in our communities but also to the global internet. With that, any last comments before we let you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday? Final comments, Jeannie?
No, I think it's been another good meeting, and I see there's some really great suggestions that have already come through here. I also note the one from Sarah Milley, about like we've had a lot of we've all been fired up by the COVID situation, but there are some concerns that will continue past COVID, so to speak. And we don't want to forget that there are still some very dire needs that have to be addressed on an ongoing basis. So, to me, that speaks to the continuing need for this dialogue to continue.
Thanks, Jeannie. Christine?
No additional comments. I mean, thank you for everyone putting in a whole bunch of resources into the chat that we're collecting and we're posting in the notes. Really appreciate that. And I think this Hui continues to be a reflection of the kind of conversation that we need to have moving forward in order to really affect universal broadband across all of the islands. So thank you for your continued participation.
All right, with that, I will end the Broadband Hui for the 10th week in a row. I'm so proud of that. And we will have our next meeting next Wednesday, June 3rd, same time at 9 a.m. in the morning. So enjoy your rest of the Wednesday and the rest of your week. And of course, you stay awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, I got to remember to save the chat.
I saved it too.
I did put all of the notes, Bert, in the Google Docs. I mean, all of the links in the Google Docs under resources.
Okay.
Just trying to put a Jeannie, are you on too? I don't know how to look to see who's on the Google Notes. Or okay, awesome.
Yeah, there's a, you know, if you click on the share button, it shows who's, you know, who's shared, but then the link can also be sent out to anybody who wants to edit or just view. And that's kind of what I did with the contact list.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, so I think it was, Curtis.
Maybe for one of the days next week or so, you can, if you're going to talk about the telehealth, we can do something from the new medical clinic. So the medical clinic, Dr. Green and Dr. Ireland are opening up.
We're used to having like clean, like
where's all that?
Oh, okay. So the medical clinic that Dr. Josh Green and Dr. Ireland are opening up, we're actually providing the full furniture, the computers, infrastructure, network, everything for that. And their big thing is, you know, they're hoping that it's going to do a lot of telehealth. So we're actually setting up, I think, 4 or 6 telehealth stations, you know, that people, the doctors and the nurses and stuff will be able to interact with people. So, you know, maybe if you want to use that as a potential, I don't know, like promo or something like that, just to you know, show what the capabilities are.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I have, you know, people like Christina and Laura on the call, because they're the telehealth experts, and they kind of bring to the table, you know, that subject matter. So, you know, I'll run it by them. But thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, sure. It's by the way, it's expected to open. First day is June 1st, so next Monday.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah, like literally in days. You know, we're heading over today and loading furniture in, and start doing some extra network cabling and stuff like that to wire the network up.
Awesome, Curtis.
Yeah, seriously, stop in.
Where is this now again?
Where's that audio?
It's
where's that audio coming from?
I think it's Christina's office. I'm not sure.
That's because my son is in school, and we were hearing each other's background noise.
Okay.
So
all right,
it's on North King Street. It's Kalihi Medical Building, 2055 North King Street. But yeah, we're gonna be over there, you know, doing all the networking and cabling and computers and stuff like that. But if you get a chance, you know, drop me an email. I can schedule a time and come on over and take a look at the place.
Okay, sounds good. Anyway, we're gonna end soon. So Curtis, I just gotta do a quick recap with Christine and Jeannie.
Yep. See you guys.
Thanks,
okay,
Curtis.
Bert, should we hang up and call in again because
no, I'll just
Bill Sides is on the call.
Not anymore. That's why it's good to be, you know, the host. I can mute people and I can remove them.
Yeah. So I'm sorry if you're going to hear my son here, but hopefully it's not too much of a. I'll hold the mic close to my mouth.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna stop recording. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.